Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another movie review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 2020 film Onward from Disney Pixar. Onward is set in a universe where magic existed in the past, but after new technology made things easier, magic was forgotten almost entirely. Magic was very difficult to master, and technological conveniences became much more appealing to the potential magic users. To me, this seems like a very reasonable explanation for why magic had disappeared in their society, as it seems like something that could happen in our own society with other sorts of skills that are non-magic related. In this opening scene, there are huge wide shots showing many magnificent creatures, showing off how absolutely amazing Pixar's animation is, as everything besides the cartoony looking characters looks so realistic that it almost looks live action. After the title card, we meet most of our main characters: Ian Lightfoot, voiced by Tom Holland, his brother Barley, voiced by Chris Pratt, their mom Laurel, voiced by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and her new boyfriend Colt Bronco. The Lightfoots are all elves, while Bronco is a centaur. The scene establishes main character traits, while having many tiny moments that will be paid off in some regards later in the movie, including the mom's chant while working out, Barley's remark about centaur speeds, and when Barley tells Ian he should be the wizard in his game. These are small little things that aren't necessary to include in the movie, but it's nice little touches like this that makes Pixar so good at making great movies. Ian is established to be a shy, lonely elf who is unsure of himself most of the time, while his older brother Barley is confident, brave, and obsessed with magic. It is also established in this scene that the boy's father, Wilden, passed away when Barley was young and before Ian was even born. After a day at school of trying to be like his dad, Ian comes home and listens and talks to a tape he has of his dad. This is a really sentimental moment to begin with, as you can hear the joy in Ian's voice during this segment, followed by the crushing devastation of realizing that he can't actually talk to him once the tape has ended. I'll give a lot of credit to Tom Holland's voice work here, which is fantastic in this scene as well as the rest of the film in general. However, this becomes an even more emotional moment when you realize how personal this story, and especially this moment, is to the film's head director / writer, Dan Scalding. He lost his father at a very young age, and has said that he even had a recording of his own father's voice that he used to listen to all the time. Hearing how much of his own life experiences Scalding put into making this movie just makes it that much more impactful to me, as it shows he had great stories to tell that clearly meant a lot to him. After that, Laurel decides to give the boys a present from their dad, a wizard staff with a powerful phoenix gem and a spell to bring him back for one day. Eager, Barley tries the spell several times to no avail. Disappointed, Ian tries it himself later on and it works, until something goes wrong and the gem explodes, leaving the boys with only the bottom half of their dad. They then set out on a quest to fix the spell and see their dad. While on the road, Ian makes a list of things he wants to do with their dad when they're able to get him back. He has typical things like playing catch and driving lessons, and then has more emotionally impactful things like a heart-to-heart and to share his life story. It's an overall really cute moment that makes you feel bad for Ian and root for him to be able to experience all these things with his dad that he never got to experience. Ian begins to practice spells in the back of the van, but can't seem to get them to work because he's not using what Barley calls his heart's fire. Barley supports him and acts like a mentor for all of the magical elements of their journey. The boys travel to the Manticore's tavern, only to find that it is completely changed into a family-friendly diner. I was honestly not expecting this, but it makes complete sense in the universe they've set up that has forgotten their historical magical ways. The Manticore, voiced by Octavia Spencer, refuses to help them, more concerned with her tavern's well-being and not wanting a potential lawsuit. It's funny to see such a powerful looking creature in this environment, and Spencer does a really good job with the role. She accidentally burns down the tavern in rage, and Ian and Barley escape with only a children's map to lead them on their way to the gem. They argue about which path to take, building tension as to whose ideas about the quest are better, the central conflict between the two brothers within the film. When the van runs out of gas, Ian messes up a growth spell on the gas can, accidentally shrinking Barley instead. When they get to the gas station, they piss off some biker fairies who begin to chase them, starting what is in my opinion a really good action scene. With Barley still too small to drive, Ian is forced to learn on the spot, while Barley teaches him. This ends up being an emotional moment in the end, but we'll get to that later. Ian is forced to face his fears of merging onto the expressway, and has to learn fast in order to get where they're trying to go and escape the fairies. They manage to take down each group of fairy bikers differently, making the action scene very diverse. I really like when action scenes do this, rather than something like punching dozens of nameless goons the same way each time. The uniqueness of each attack within the action scene makes it interesting to watch, while the character growth and emotional connections between the brothers is also a great addition to the scene. After the chase, the boys are pulled over by the cops, creating another great scene that is one of my favorites in the movie. The boys decide that the best way to get away is to use a disguising spell, which works as long as you tell the truth. We see some quick thinking from Ian as he avoids answering difficult questions and finds ways to avoid lying, until he slips up and lies about what he really thinks about Barley. A cop asks if he thinks Barley's a screw-up, and he says no, as the spell starts to wear off. There are so many great things about this scene, so I'll just start with the smallest. There's a very casual line where the female cop talks about her girlfriend, making her an openly lesbian character. None of the characters even bat an eye at this, and the movie doesn't try to highlight it or show how good they are for having diversity and inclusive characters. While I'm not a lesbian myself, I feel like this is the right way to portray this type of character. The fact that she just simply exists in this universe is very well done, and shows how we are coming as a society into being more inclusive. The part of this scene that I love from a storytelling perspective is how they managed to get Ian to reveal his true feelings about Barley without actually telling him or breaking character. I think that the spell that only works if you tell the truth is a great way of doing this, and makes it much more impactful to us the viewer and to the two boys within the movie. Barley pulls over and gets out of the car, upset with Ian and accusing him of hating all his ideas. The boys fight until their dad starts dancing and cheers everyone up. In order to prove he doesn't think Barley's a screw-up, Ian decides to listen to his idea and take the path of peril. After traveling through the night, the boys arrive at a pit where Ian has to use an invisible trust bridge spell in order to get across. I think this is another great scene as it develops one of the movie's themes about the importance of confidence. The idea that confidence and belief is such a big part of creating successful spells in this universe is great in my opinion, because it teaches kids that when you believe in yourself, you can do anything that you put your mind to. It also shows how fear can cause you to fail. When Ian was scared of falling, he failed to make the bridge. But after he realized the rope protected him from any real danger, he was able to try with no fear, this time successfully making the bridge. However, the bridge also disappeared again as soon as he found out the rope was gone and that he was in real danger again. After they cross the bridge, Bronco arrives to take them home, but Ian drives off following the ravens that Barley pointed out. They reach a dead end and Barley is forced to sacrifice Guinevere so that they can keep the cops from reaching them. The boys then follow all the ravens to the last one, where they find a map saying they should follow the river to the end. They turn a cheesy into a boat and bond practicing spells on the way there. They do some additional bonding when Barley talks about the regret he has with his last memory of their dad, where he was too scared to go visit him while he was on his deathbed. This is one of the most emotional moments for Barley's character, and it gives us insight as to why he acts the way he does now, saying that was when he swore to never be afraid again. At the end of the river, the boys find a series of puzzles and traps, along with the gelatinous cube that Barley had mentioned several times. They manage to find creative solutions to escape, using the fact that their dad has no top half to their advantage to defeat the traps. Once again, this is a very well made action sequence that I quite enjoyed, although not as much as the last one or the film's climax. When the boys reach the end of the cave, they realize that they ended up right back at the school, which causes Ian to freak out, calling Barley a screw-up and blaming him for ruining his chance of ever getting to meet his dad. At this point, we have a very common protagonist fight before the climax of the movie cliche. I say cliche and not trope, because almost every single time that this is used, it happens the exact same way. The two or more protagonists fight, they split up, come to some sort of realization about what they need to do or how they were wrong, and then come back together in the end to achieve their common goal. This is exactly what happens in the movie, which is why I feel it falls into a commonly used storytelling cliche. In the next scene, Ian and his dad are sitting at a cliff, watching the sunset. Ian gets out his list from before and crosses off the remaining items on it, knowing he will never get to do any of them. Before he does this though, he pauses and realizes that he's had a father figure all along, and that was Barley. He thinks back to playing catch on the raft, learning how to drive, and all of the other things he had on his list. In this moment, he realizes that he doesn't need to meet his dad. He already has one. He then gets up and rushes to help Barley before it's too late. This is once again another beautiful, emotional scene created by Pixar, saying so much about the importance of older brothers as role models and brotherly love as a whole. It is an overall great scene when you see the realization on Ian's face that he's had what he's been looking for all along. At the same time, Barley is trying desperately to find the Phoenix Gem and prove Ian wrong. He ends up finding it in the fountain, but when he grabs it, he releases the curse. The curse ends up being a dragon, made up of different parts of the school. I thought this was really creative, and if you look closely, you can kind of see it coming, showing that while it may have been unexpected, it was still telegraphed so that it wouldn't come out of nowhere. My favorite part of the dragon is the cute mascot face it has, and the fact that it uses the school bell as a roar. After it is fully formed, the dragon starts chasing the boys. Just as it is catching up, their mom and the manticore show up and try to fight the beast. While they distract it, the boys use the gem to finish the spell and bring back their dad. However, before their dad is fully back, the dragon beats their mom and the manticore, so Ian has to make the tough decision to leave their dad and fight. He has already come to realize that he does not need closure with their dad, and that it is more important that Barley is given this chance at redemption. He ends up holding the dragon at bay using every single spell that he's practiced, before finally throwing the manticore's sword right through its center just before it reaches Barley. He gets trapped in a pile of rubble and has to watch from a distance as Barley is able to connect with her dad for one brief moment. This is such an impactful moment for both Ian and Barley, as both characters are able to grow and receive what it is that they needed the most. We see in this fight with the dragon that Ian has finally gained confidence in himself, being able to perfectly execute every spell. He's also happy that Barley was able to get this last moment with her dad, accepting his fate of never meeting their real father, but knowing that he is an older brother that was the best father figure he could have ever hoped for. As for Barley, it is such an important moment for him, as it is his closure for the last memory he had with his father before, the one that he had tried to forget. Last time he was too scared to see his father before he died, but this time he was brave enough to stay and say his final goodbyes. It was a second chance for an event that he still regretted to that day, and one that shaped the entire person he grew up to be. This moment is a huge burden lifted off his chest as he is finally able to say the things that he was too scared to say before. After their dad disappears again, this time for good, Barley comes over to help Ian out of the pit and fill in the gaps about what their dad said. This is important along with the fact that Ian could barely hear or even see their dad from his vantage point, because it has always been Barley who told him about what their dad was actually like. The scene ends with a very emotional hug between the brothers, one that Barley says is from Dad, once again showing that everything that connects Ian to his dad is because of Barley. In the end of the movie, nobody has actually gained anything new, they've just simply had a change in perspective. For example, the manticore changes her tavern more similar to how it was, something she already had within her before the movie. And more importantly, Ian has changed his perspective about his father and Barley, accepting and welcoming the idea that it is Barley who has really been his father all along. The movie ends with a final shot of the camera panning across Ian's pictures of his dad and their family, ending on the one of him and his brother and mom, but only showing him and Barley. This is because while the whole family was important in the story, it was really the connection between these two brothers that made the movie special. So that was my rundown of the entire movie. But before I finish the review, there's just a couple more things to point out that I just didn't really fit anywhere else. Firstly, while I think the idea of having the half-dad along with the ride most of the movie is interesting, it was often inconsistent or out of place. There are times where he would do something and I would think, there's no way he could do that without the top half of his body, such as when he kept dancing after he got out of the van and found Ian and Barley to make them join in. The comedy aspect of this character also fell kind of flat for me, as most of the time, I was just thinking a lot of it was like Weekend at Bernie's. I still stand by my statement of the last video that I don't see an issue with borrowing ideas from the other movies. It's just the fact that I'd seen something very similar to this that just made it less funny to me personally. Second thing I want to add in at the end here is the idea the film sets up about father bonding versus brother bonding. At the end, where Ian realizes he has done everything he wanted to do with his dad with Barley instead, it sets up the idea that when a boy is bonding with his older brother, this is essentially the same thing as bonding with their father. I thought that this was overall a really cool message and something that makes you think after you leave the theater. In conclusion, this was a beautifully made movie that had some great emotional moments, but was also an exciting adventure story as well. I'm going to give this movie a 7.5 out of 10 for entertainment and a 9 out of 10 for quality of film, giving it an overall rating of 8.25 out of 10. Like I said, it was a very well-made movie that everyone involved clearly felt passionate about, which resulted in a great final product. Anyways, that's all I have to say, so don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned next week for the review of my all-time favorite movie. If you have any suggestions for movies you want to see reviewed in the future, let me know in the comments below. If you want more updates on videos, check out my Instagram, ntd_films. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.